to test with as well.
What's
Why
this
do
for?
things change? It's the podcast apps, man. All my shit just changes for no reason. I hate it.
Like continuously.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are we live?
We're live on. We should be live on YouTube.
Okay. I can do a double check.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind doing that. And if you wouldn't mind just recording on your end as well. Yeah, I'm not gonna.
Yes.
Not gonna bother with the podcast app. And now that plate chink I just heard, was that you or was that upstairs?
No, that would have been me.
Yeah, if you could just move the plate off the table or something, because I hear it.
Oh, sorry, there was no plate on the table or anything.
Okay, I heard this like
sorry, there was
sort of sound.
It might have been me standing up. Is that too bright?
Well, should be okay.
I was testing it out with Andrew, just on having it like that.
Oh. That what's that sound? That's the chair, is it?
Oh yeah, that's the chair when I was like jumping up and down. Yeah, sorry.
Okay, yeah. Don't do that anymore. Yeah, okay. I hear that a lot in the audio. Are you fucking jumping up and down when we're?
Yeah, no. You might just not when we're doing. No, oh, sometimes I do. Sometimes I do when I'm like repositioning myself like this. But yeah, okay. I'll make sure I won't jump.
Yeah, don't jump. Don't jump. Yeah,
don't jump.
I hear that pretty often.
I'm liking the.
Like, I thought
I'm enjoying the light setup now. Fucking bing, 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 bing.
Plates or something.
Smashing plates, Greek style. All right, confirming
usual,
that we are live.
It's Juan's fault, everyone, as usual.
Hola, Lucas.
Man,
okay, cool. Cooked just from the fucking tiredness.
Yeah, just from being up at this time.
Honestly, it's kind of weird. I don't know who'd be more cooked, you or me, right now. Maybe technically you, I think, just because you're not used to like the early wake ups.
Yeah.
Are we calling these meanderings?
Being 6 a.m.
We are.
Yes.
Cool. Let's rock and roll.
Yeah, just doing a social post.
Also, I didn't update properly, I guess, the settings that we must have used last time with the guys earlier. I didn't really check it properly. So when I did the convo with Andrew, or if anyone listens to this, you'll see what I mean. It ended up coming out so loud. Like it was like, boo! And I had to do some massive audio editing work to bring it back within the realm of listenable. So, but I have been enjoying the Adobe podcast audio enhancement, or at least kind of tuning out like background noise. Definitely helps for the echo.
It's pretty funny because that is such a simple, crappy tool, Juan.
And
yet it is perfect for you.
It's been doing a good job. It's been doing the echo, like the removal of echo well.
You can do so much more with Audition.
But I agree. But it is simple enough that it's like, it hits enough of what I want it to do, I guess.
Yeah, I get you. Now, I'm the same with, I mean, like, if I could just have I use the simple ones, but is the simplest thing to do, like the live. And it's still stuffing up a lot.
What about value for value? When are you going to do the next V for V episode?
I'll talk about that today.
Okay, good.
Okay, all right. Social posts are done. I'll let you run this one, man. Let me just media thing. Are you recording on your side?
Yep.
Check. Am I recording on my side? Am I coming through louder than last week?
Same for me.
So last week I was really soft. Could you bring up the YouTube video again and just see? Because I was really soft in comparison to you. I upped
Usually
my mic.
that's normal.
No, this was like really bad. You could hear the check. Am I recording on my side?
Yeah, coming through fine.
Louder than last week.
Like louder than last week for sure.
Yeah, still pretty soft. Let me see if I can just up my mic a little bit more. Microphone. La 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 la. Where is the microphone settings? Of course, it doesn't show up. Microphone setup. Microphone sound settings, I guess maybe. Microphone here. It says it's at 80. I'll go to 80. There we go. All right. Hopefully that'll be
got it a bit louder.
Check. Yeah, I think that's.
Oh, I can hear the difference there.
Yeah. I can turn it up louder if necessary. What do you reckon?
No, I think that's plenty. People in the chat, if you're in there, if you want to give us some feedback, let us know.
I'll just have to talk deeper.
Oh.
All right. I don't have the Meanderings intro in here because of reasons. Maybe if I
fair.
Let's see if I wait. This won't take long. Intro music clips. Intro music snippet. Oh, let's see if I can get this in here quickly.
Yeah, while you do that, I'm just going to quickly close the blinds.
Okay.
Any extra protection from echoing is always better. Oh, yeah.
All right. Ready to
Let's do it.
do this? All right, here we go.
Welcome back, Mere Mortalites. It is a meandering session. It is live. You've got here the Mere Mortals Juan in Australia.
And Kyron Michael down on this side.
Now, I've got to address this directly, folks. Kyron Michael down. I'm not going to preempt something, but we received a Boostagram today in response to this about Mr. Michael down. And there was some confusion. So if you do want to know why Kyron calls himself Kyron Michael down, stick around halfway through. We'll explain it in the Boostagram Lounge. But Meanderings is a chance for us to have a pretty open, wide-ranging conversation. In the past, at this time slot at 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, 7:30 p.m. at the moment, we've been going through more so in musings, where we're talking through a structured conversation. Now, we are live at 7:30 right now. We are going to be changing that, so we're trying to kind of address that off the bat. We're going to be moving towards a weekend time slot, something that works a little bit easier for myself and Kyron as we continue to do the podcast from various locations around the world, but also shifting to a meanderings method for the next few months. Why? It is easier on us in the way that we address it. Honestly, it's fun in what we're doing right now. It helps us probably as well catch up on what we're talking about. If for folks who probably don't know, before we actually began this podcast, the Mere Mortals podcast, the reason we began it was because Kyron was away in another long-term travel over in South America, and it was through audio, like big 30-minute audios that we would send back to each other that gave us the impetus to do the podcast later down the track. So realistically, this kind of serves once again to what we wanted to do back then, which is kind of catching up. Meanderings fits that way, and that's just to give some people some context to why we're doing what we're doing. Right. So right off the bat,
going back to our roots.
Exactly.
The only problem is that was more how would we say R-rated, or what Steven said from a couple of weeks ago. You know, like MA 15 plus.
This is R23 plus.
These are more on the PG side of things, but yeah, you're correct. You know what the funniest thing is? I think we must have both been absolutely delusional that we thought this would work at this time slot. I mean, especially for me, just although I do have most of my notes today are actually around routine and habits. So it was funny actually testing out the routine and seeing like, oh man, this is actually really hard. I'm not
This
sure
is
this is
not something that's going to work. Now, so, I mean, bit of context for people. So we thought that shifting half an hour later for myself personally and way earlier for Karen. So it's 6:30 a.m. context for Karen, 7:30 p.m. here in Australian Eastern Standard Time. And we were actually chatting a little bit before off air, but live on YouTube around shit, just how difficult it like who's actually worse off for. Now, where we're going to be moving in time, again, we probably don't know exactly the time, but we'll get to it. It's going to look like probably me being at a 6:30 a.m., Karen being in like a 7:30 p.m. slot, and that works way better. That's just how, we ended up working, and it's what it is. So look, you'll see that we'll communicate it in various formats. Work with us.
Yeah, we haven't even discussed it. Yeah,
I think we need to begin most of these meanderings though, man. I think we need to start off with like Brazil updates. This is going to be like the consistency, and I'm going to target it really specifically. I just want the one or two memorable moments of the last week since we chatted.
Yeah, sure. So I've got a couple of notes here, but these aren't the most memorable ones. The memorable one for me probably was doing an asado, so a churrasco for those who want the Brazilian
like a
word
barbecue.
for it. A barbecue. Yeah, so it's essentially the Brazilian version of a barbecue. Everyone has every country seems to have like some sort of grilling of meat on a some sort of stone or grill or whatever it is, and yeah, their version. It's funny how I can see where Australian barbecues go wrong, and why I'm not as big a fan of our ones as I think I'm a fan of the Argentinian or Brazilian ones, for example. So, as for context, I went to Cianorce, which is a town northeast, or maybe it's like east, basically, of where I'm at now in Londrina, and in Cianorce, that's where Lucas's girlfriend's mum and aunt live, and so we went to stay at their house. So his in-laws, I guess, if he was to be married, and they kind of welcomed him to the house. Obviously, they know Lucas, and I hope they know Yara. And welcomed us in, and I was welcome as well. And yeah, we just stayed there, and then they had this big family gathering on the Sunday. So it was, like cousins, nephews, partners of them, things like that. I mean, it wasn't. There's probably 10, 12-ish people all up, something like that. So, it's not like the largest thing, but it was still reasonably sized. And yeah, we just did a churrasco, and they have their, specially built, how would I call it? It's, imagine like, a pizza oven, I guess, but the base of it underneath is kind of like a funnel, and so that's where you put all the coal, and you light up the coal, and it's burning and whatnot, and then you've got like the rack at just normal level height to put meat on, and they've got special equipment like these big pair of like tongs where you stick on like a full chicken or a full rump of meat of some sort, and man, just they the difference is they cook it kind of like one at a time type deal, or they've got different pieces of meat, so it all comes off individually. So whereas an Australian barbecue, I mean, it's not always the same, but a lot of times you'll cook everything at the same time, everything will be done, and then you move all the meat onto the table, and then that's when everyone eats together. This is more, one thing is done at one time, like one piece of sausage or one piece of lamb or steak or whatever it is, and then you cook it up straight away into like little tiny bite-sized pieces, and you just give a little bit to everyone. And it was just amazing. It was just so tasty, man. So tasty. That was, I mean, obviously like the aspects of talking and chatting and being part, having some drinks, being part of like the family atmosphere is great. But god damn that meat. Ooh.
The beer was good. What was it just purely the produce, or was it like additional things, sauces, spices?
No. They add is like maybe a little bit of salt, but no, there's no spices, there's no sauces.
Just
apart
good,
from
just good produce.
one big thing. Just really, and just cooked fresh, just fresh off the grill. That's what made the difference. I'll give a shout out to this guy, and this is a fun little term, Boca aberta. What do you think that means, Juan? You don't know
Boca verde.
Boca aberta. You don't need to know Portuguese to know this. Spanish is pretty good as well.
Yeah, mouth something.
Mouth open, which means open
mouth. Open.
So,
right.
Boca aberta is basically someone who is just like, rah, 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 rah. They're constantly. I think you could use it for, perhaps for someone. I don't know. It's one of those words where it's kind of, what would be it'd probably be shit talker is the equivalent in English. And
have you heard of this particular term going around at the moment in, I don't know what generation, said, or the even younger one? Well, they call it yapping, like when someone yaps too much. And we've probably used that term before in the past. I know I've used it before, but it's yapping as in like yapping, yapping.
Yeah.
And I see so much of it now.
Okay, I can't say I've heard that in particular.
Okay.
I mean, it makes sense. It's just an old word, but I'm sure I'm not using it how the kids.
Well, I'll get into another part of the story. I want to let you finish, but it will include into something that's been taking my I guess energy in a fun way, in a funny way. But like a call out is like Luke Belmar. I don't know if Luke Belmar is a name that you know, big on social media. One of those guys that it seems like he made a bit of money on crypto, but post the most over the top reels for views and call outs, and everyone on his comments is either support or everyone else basically being like, this dude is the king yappinator. This dude yaps. Yeah. This dude yaps like no tomorrow. Like yap queen, yap king. So that's where I've been seeing yap, and like in a lot of other contexts. So, but anyways, okay. So that's a good call out. So barbecue made all the better in a Brazilian way, eating it in individual and get good meat.
So Boca aberta. This was the guy who was helping to cook. So Lucas and he were cooking. They were kind of like the two chefs, and he took over mostly. And he is a shit talker. There's no doubt he's a shit talker, but it's in a great way. And what I really noticed for me was, when you're at a level of Portuguese which is rudimentary, and by that I mean, I'm saying things like, it's funny, like when you try and explain just how bad your Portuguese is, and you're trying to like create shitty English, and your brain just does not want you to do it.
To create shitty English.
I'd be saying things which are the equivalent of like, I wasn't realized. I want to say I haven't realized, or something like that, or I will not realized. I'd put it in the wrong tense and I'd use the wrong word, but that's still kind of get it, maybe.
Yeah.
And when you're at this stage, you can ask questions, relatively simple. I'll be like, oh, it's how come I can't see the stars here, or I can see the stars here. This is interesting, and usually that'll just give the impetus for someone to talk for a little bit. But he was great because, man, he just talked. He just talked so much, and he talked even though he probably realized I'm only getting about 70% of what he's saying. Maybe, 70% I think is a good mark. When that gets into conversation and I'm part of a three people with two other Portuguese speaker, that easily drops to like 30%. But on that one-on-one with him, he just kept talking. And so we talked for probably like 2 hours together, and
of which I was going to say fantastic for your Portuguese, but it was it was 2 hours of talking, but it was him 1 hour and 45 minutes of talking, and you 15 minutes of talking. And
Definitely. But that's what you need when you're at my level of learning, understanding, and things like that. And I'm just so appreciative for him for doing that, because that, that's the kind of thing that really levels up your Portuguese. You don't feel it at the time. You don't really learn any more new words, but it's just getting to you start to realize, like, oh, he just said buraco. That means hole. You're just piecing together that thing of where you're trying to figure out what exactly they're saying. And it's kind of like, you've seen those example sentences where they take out all of the vowels, but you can still almost perfectly read it. You're just reading it through and you're like, okay, I can read this. I'm missing half of the information, or like a third of the information, but I still understand what's being said. And I'm at that stage where all the vowels are missing, and some of the important letters, like a T, they're missing. When it's an X or something, I'll be like, oh yeah, I could kind of understand that word because it's a weird word. But damn, there's just some things which is just like, oh my god, I don't know what this means. I don't know what they're saying. And then
that's a good way to see it, though.
Yeah. And then there's just people where it's impossible to understand. There was a guy who had some sort of physical deformity, and Lucas and I met him yesterday, and we were just
probably
sheltering
bald
from some rain. No, he had good hair, and he was just talking with Lucas, and I'm just like, I tapped out as soon as he started speaking things. He
speed or
no, just the way he was making noises with his mouth, really deep, just really like, and it was raining really hard, and there was a busy road next to us. And right as we were leaving, he got really animated and talked about something, and his false set of teeth fell out. And so I was like, oh, okay, yeah, all of these combined equal Kyron not understanding shit.
Kyron not super paying attention.
I'd say that was probably the biggest thing for me. There's cool stuff. Cianorce is basically, it's called like the city of clothes, and basically it's kind of just specialized for clothes. If you walk down, I don't know how to describe it, because the city itself is still relatively large. It's probably about the size of Mackay. So if you've ever been to Mackay, you'll know there's not really a city center. There's kind of one main long street which has most of the like boutique stores or nice restaurants and things like that. Cianorce is kind of like that, where it's got one long one, or maybe like one long one with a couple of crossing streets, and almost all of it is clothes. Just clothes for the days. Specialized clothes stores for kids, for chic fashion, for jeans, for socks, for whatever. And I was just so surprised, but damn, this is just like a random smallish town, smallish city. City's probably a strong word.
Township,
decent sized town, I guess. I'm just gonna guess like 100,000 people, and they just had a lot of clothes there, man. a lot of clothes.
Yeah, that's odd. I wouldn't have even termed any specialization in Brazil to be about clothes, but like, I would attribute it to like Italy or something like that.
Yeah. I think it's more just for the for the distribution, not necessarily for the manufacturing. Maybe once upon a time it was manufacturing, but similar things happen. Asunción, Paraguay. The amount of people who go there just to buy cheap shit and bring it back into Brazil is pretty high as well. So, places just monetary, just economics. I don't know, humans just doing human things. They end up getting just a town full of clothes.
Yeah, there you go. You mentioned humans doing human things. I'm going to use that as a transition, and the yapping and Japanese to go to this thing that I wanted to share with you, because you probably haven't encountered this, and it's been something that I've been really enjoying of the last week or two. So there's a few people, so you would know a few of these that I'm about to name. Grant Cardone, which is one of the other ones that you might know. Do you know a guy called Chris Cron? So I'll listen off people. There's Grant Cardone, there's Chris Cron, there's P. Diddy. There's a guy called Wes Watson. There's another guy called the guy who's a monk, Phil Shetty. Jay Shetty.
Yeah, you read his book, man.
Yeah, all of these folks, right? So here we go. So them individual and Wes Watson, dude, Wes Watson. If you haven't come across Wes Watson, man, you'd be in for some good laughs. But basically,
I hope you're taking notes, people. Once like the
now I'm gonna
list. After this, go to your Instagram and follow all these people.
Well, I'm gonna put a caveat in that a lot of what these people say, there are like grains of truth in there, and like grains of recognition that I also agree with. I'm going to give you an example. Chris Cron, he talks a lot about, hey, I wake up really early, 4 something in the morning. I go do like lots of training and I do my whatever, all that sort of stuff. And I don't disagree with that. I do that. I do that for a large part. I don't put it out as over the top as he does, but sometimes I agree with. Sometimes I'm like, you just sound like an absolute dickhead. Fine, cool. You know, you're going to have those two ends. If you're going to be operating as an influencer, social media type, that's what's going to happen. But I just took it as like, hey, that exists in its own realm. I'm sure people hate them. Now, I stumbled upon a page, and I don't know if you have heard of this page or if others have, called Baller Busters. No. And I don't know if they operate on Facebook or in other places. I see them on Instagram, maybe on TikTok. I don't know. I don't have TikTok anymore. But Baller Busters on Instagram are this page who, as far as I can see, go back all the way to 2019 and essentially just like destroy all of these financial social media influencers in either A, calling them out in really funny ways because of stupid ass statements that they make, or all the way down like the Coffeezilla mode of doing investigations, checking out like someone saying, hey, I own this and I do that, and they'll, you know, do all their investigation to be like, actually, no, they're currently under fraud, you know, under blah, 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 being for this particular thing, and they don't own that, and they're renting. So, but they just, man, they go hard at the paint. Like, I don't know how these people haven't been like chased down by these others sending them someone like death threats or whatever, but they go hardcore. And like what struck me, and maybe I'll ask it in terms of Brazil, one of the things that I noticed about it was before social media. So I don't know, let's take it even older. Like when we were born, like around in the 90s area or 95, if there was someone out there who was an influencer or try to be an influencer or you know, hey, I'm trying to peddle things, I'm trying to sell on to you so you can buy through maybe CDs and whatever have you. If it helped people or if you agreed with it and you kind of stumbled upon your ecosystem, it was like, okay, cool, awesome. I take that for app. If we listen to something like something stupid, I'll give you an example of stupid thing that Chris Cron said. It was in his mind, he's already a trillionaire, because if you do some mathematics in his mind and you multiply it, he's already a trillionaire and he wants to, right? Just stupid shit. Like, don't say that. And say, you know, someone said that back in the 90s. It's kind of limited, of course, because it's just the reach is much different, right? You're not hearing these people. They're going to be in somehow, shape or form filtered by other existing mediums and the like. So you don't encounter them. Now, you hear them all over the place because they've got a bit of a voice. Not a bad thing that everyone's got a voice, but it can be a bad thing. More so for the people who, like, we just laughed about it, right? We're like, okay, this is just dumb. But I could see people out there, dude, who, example, Wes Watson, from what I've been like seeing and whatnot, people pay these guys 10 grand a month, 20 grand a month. And you see examples, dude, they just get screamed at and don't get like anything for it, right? I go, man, maybe it's self-explanatory to us and we do take the learnings away and leave the bad stuff behind, but I don't know if it's self-evident for a lot of people. And I go, man, that's kind of shitty. I don't know if there's anything that can be done apart from these funny pages that present this shit and you make you like, oh fuck, this dude's an asshole, like an asshole, an idiot, like who listens to it and makes it funny. So it makes it like, oh yeah, I want to like follow this. So anyways, I've been down the rabbit hole of losing heaps of hours just kind of like watching and laughing at these things where I kind of agree with and I go, whatever. Have you encountered, so I wanted to ask you, have you encountered any like social media, like an influencer or people talking about it in a Brazil way? Like, is this type of mentality stretch into the fabric of what you're seeing in Brazil from Lucas or a few other people? Like, did anyone talk about like, oh, this is famous this Brazilian or this group of people or whatever have you?
I'd say not in his circle, and you know, I'm still kind of on the surface, right? I haven't integrated into groups. I don't really know that many people outside of, I mean, like Lucas and Yada and their families are really the only people I've had like in-depth conversations with, and I've yet to had a chance to like create any more significant bonds other than that. No, I'm sure they have the people they follow. I'm sure there's people talking shit. Uh, all I can say is I scrolled through a couple of their TV channels recently. What is the predominant thing that you'll find on a third of the channels in going through? And
Cooking
that's probably
channels?
about 20, 25. No, it's religious stuff. It's people like
Oh,
getting into almost all guys, and they're just either talking about religion or they're preaching in front of a large group of people with a microphone. Well, I assume so. You can't. The way they're acting is as if they're in front of a big group of people, and you know, that's just, I guess, like maybe one of their versions of social influence and media influencing is they're a lot more stronger on, I assume it's the Christian sort of thing. So yeah, I wasn't really trying to interpret too hard what they were saying. And I did see when we were in Avenida Paulista in Sao Paulo, which is like the biggest street, I guess, in think of the what's the big French one that Champs-Élysées or Rue de Champs?
yeah.
People get what I mean. The big one. It's not as big as that, but you know, that's the equivalent sort of thing. And I did see multiple girls there getting their photos taken like in the middle of the street. So you know, the framing with like the two lanes going down behind them. But even Lucas was like, I don't know if I'd call them influencers rather than just, you know, like girls who just want some nice photos of themselves. And some of them were just like groups of girls taking it with themselves, like younger teenage ones. So
yeah, okay.
yeah, I think that stuff's everywhere. Whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, personally, yeah, you can go both ways. I tend to not fall into the side of we need to protect people from other people. If anything, I would say social media is good for exactly what you're talking about. It lets you be able to have at least a glimmer of like, oh, this other people think this person is full of shit as well. Whereas if you're in like a crowded bar and a guy's there and he's got two of his friends who are believing everything that he's talking about, it can be a bit harder to speak up in some certain cases. In that, I know I'd find it harder to be like, man, this dude's full of shit, but I'm not going to say it to his face.
No, that's a good point.
One of multiple people thinking that.
True. Yeah, it's hard to do it in person. No, okay, that's interesting because I would have said see in Brisbane.
Yeah. No, you could go on. I've got a slightly tangential thing.
Oh, okay, cool. So I was just going to say, like, at least for me, I see in Brisbane, like where we live, and at least from what you're saying in Brazil, it's not as what I would imagine nowadays a self-evident place like LA or where a lot of these people are from, like Miami, where honestly it looked like everyone's either lying or everyone's just like posing, and you see it a lot on social media, and it only looks like it just happens all the time. Like this just must be like this fucking circus show where everyone's just pretending to be different shit, which makes me go, you know, the glitz and glamour can be good, right? I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but man, it can come with so much other shit, so much other negative shit that you don't necessarily think it happens until you discover it, and only over time, right? Because you might discover this in Brazil over time as well, that you like kind of scratch yourself, you're like, oh, actually, no, people fucking lie a lot, or people just really pose, or they don't really who they are. Whereas I don't see that in Brisbane so much, maybe because we're a small, again, as part of a comparison to the world, it's like a township, right? It's not gigantic, even though the Olympics are going to be here in 2032. It's small enough that people don't have to be fake, although there certainly exists those people. But yeah, okay, interesting. What was the tangent we were going to say?
yeah, I would say I'd say it's more a size thing than anything else. When you just get to a large enough size, you can have people famous for being famous. You can have specialized, the people who go around to gyms and show out the new fancy stuff. And yeah, I think it's more of a size related thing than anything else. The tangential thing was my hot take is I think Coffeezilla will have a fall someday, a fall from grace. Not necessarily due to him as a person. I'm kind of ambivalent about whether he's good or bad or anything like that. I think it's that when you take so much glee in the kind of downfall of others, like he's really happy and kind of joking. He's serious at times, don't get me wrong, but that's one of the things that made me kind of stop watching him, was how happy he was about and like laughing at the people who he's exposing. And I'm just like, man, whether this is just creating enemies or some kind of like bad karma, I just get the feeling like one day he's gonna have a questionable whatever, exposing someone, and he or someone, I could imagine someone setting him up as well, like creating what looks like a big scam and then actually just like doing it just to kind of capture
like
him,
getting him a rue and bring him in.
Yeah, I think if you're in the gotcha game, that shit comes around. That's probably the big kind of like learning I've got.
Are you super familiar, or at least familiar, with the story of Cato the Younger from Stoicism?
Kind of.
Passingly. The only reason I mention it is because I'm reading at the moment Ryan Holiday's kind of book about the Stoics. And I actually really like, weirdly, again, I don't know what the hell's going on, but now I'm starting to enjoy more history than anything. But Cato the Younger had I'm not comparing to Coffeezilla, but it had a similar view where he was very strict, he was very rigorous, he was very like on point and very stoic. But because of that, there was a lot of things that caused him grief in regulation to around the time of Caesar and the like. And basically he ended up having all these problems where, at the face of it, if he'd actually decided for the empire, for the people, it actually would have been better if I wasn't so fucking hard ass on that exact line and being like, actually, I need to not do that for this particular council or conversation, because I can let that go, and it's actually a better overall. I kind of similarly see that downfall of, is that just like an example of, when you're too strict at something and you don't see kind of the overall, you may find that there's a greater fall. I see that for Coffeezilla or other people, that's like in that regard, where kind of when you're subsumed to be like, okay, well, everyone must have some problems and some issues, you can kind of keep on finding and discovering that like everyone else has some way that you could look at it and be like, oh, that was dodgy, or you could have done better, or you shouldn't have done that. And I think it's going to become a game of gotcha. And then somehow he'll be in because if in the space, he might get led down the path, not by his own wanting, but just because he's involved in it all. And as you said, either someone will try and get him, or he'll just fall without knowledge of it and get wrapped up into something. And then all of a sudden, everything will just fall by the wayside because be like, oh, look at this guy.
Just the unintentional stuff, Say he does I think he does Patreon or that type of support model. He's got, some people who are perhaps like really big Patreons, and they start to influence and they start saying certain things in his Patreon group or his Discord, or it turns out like, oh my God, he's actually being sponsored. Like his top patrons are actually scam artists themselves who are shilling shit. And it's just like, could be totally out of his control, but the things that he does, like it's more just like that gotcha stuff just seems to come around in comparison to, I don't know. I saw a clip last night of Keanu Reeves in Constantine, and like that dude is basically like untouchable. Everyone loves Keanu for whatever reason, and it seems because he's just like a genuinely nice, happy guy who's like also. You see him like hover handing girls in photos and stuff because it's just like.
I don't think it's that he's like this always happy guy. I think it's just this very relatable human.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, when I say that, I mean, yeah, the he doesn't seem like an asshole. That's what I mean.
Yeah. That's a good way, but he just seems like a one of us.
Yeah, he's reached like the absolute levels of fame, but if you look at his backstories, it's a tragic things that's happened in his life that seems to have
Dude,
affected
they
him
killed
quite
his
deeply.
dog.
And
They killed his dog, man. It's
wow.
fucking crazy. Talking about supporting.
Yeah, do the support.
Yeah, I want to do the support, and then we'll move into a couple of other things. So I want to hear the rest of the notes that you have. And we teased it at the beginning. Mr. Michael Down, Karen, you're gonna have to explain this to folks as I bring it up here. But we got two Boostagrams come through for us as of late, and both of them came through from Peter. So thank you very much, Peter, for sending them through. He says, one, pretty cool on the ground report. Have a great adventure, Karen. 6,666 sats sent using Fountain. And then the second one, who's Mr. Michael Down? So confused. And that's a row of ducks, 2222 sats sent using Fountain. So I think you got to answer that one, Karen. What's Mr. Michael Down? Explain it to the folks.
So I use Michael for various different reasons. Michael's my middle name. And I'm glad my parents... over the years, I've come to question the utility of Chiron as a name. I used to kind of like it because it is unique and
oh no, Chiron's not going to identify with his name.
Yeah, I'm changing. I'm changing gender as well. But over the years, I'm kind of getting to the point where it's like, Chiron is nice, but I think Vienna is probably a nicer name. It's unusual in the sense like you're not going to meet many girls called Vienna, but you probably meet some, and basically everyone knows how to say it. Now, they might have trouble if she went to Austria, for example, or something, because they don't call it Vienna there. It'd be Wien. I'm pretty sure it'd be Wien, and that's one of the ones where I'd be like, overseas might not be so useful, but at least in her very own country, no one's going to look at that name and go, Vienna, like Vienna or something. No, it's Vienna. Everyone knows that that's how you say that. Whereas Chiron is just a pain in the ass in other countries and in my own country. And so that's why I use Michael. So I use Michael for Spanish speakers. I've been using Mike here for Portuguese speakers. And if I go to Germany, I'd probably use my nickname of Kaiser, which my mum gave me. So yeah, I think that's why you referenced Mr. Michael Down at some point.
Now I want to point out as well. You're not even the only friend in our small friendship group who does this. We have another friend who also does this in Australia as well. He uses a different name. And I only recognized it once again because I saw him not too long ago. And he uses a different name. So this is kind of common in our friendship group. This is not like unusual where, you've got myself, Manshil, you've met him the other day, Karen.
Well, Manshil does that when he gets coffee. He uses another name. I can't remember what he uses.
Our friend Nathan, he uses Nathan.
Oh yeah. There you go.
So there you go. People changing their names. So there you go. We don't identify anymore with our names. I am now. Nope. I can only. I'm going to change my name to identify to a different thing every day. So be prepared.
The number one. It's just the actual number one.
Yeah, that'll make it a lot easier. So, but thank you very much, Peter, for supporting through. Once again, that is through Boostagrams, sent through via Fountain. Oscar Murray was on the What Bitcoin Did with Peter McCormack, which was cool to listen to. I know Karen and me have both listened to it now, at least the majority of it. Once again, if you want to support the podcast, it's the way we're trying to do it. Value for value. Send through some sort of monetary piece of Bitcoin or Satoshis with a message attached. You can also stream. Plenty of good podcast players out there let you do that. You can also send through a direct PayPal cash if you'd like with PayPal. We haven't checked, but I'm assuming there's nothing there. With that PayPal, we send it straight through anyways to supporting the rest of the V4V community. So there's that. And that's what we sort of ask folks. If you want to support us, that is very much the way that we do ask for that support.
Yeah, that's one of those ones. I'm becoming more conscious about the ask portion of it and the subtle things that you say which can or cannot affect people. So, for example, someone listening in would hear that and they'd be like, well, I want to support you guys via PayPal, but you just say you're going to turn and give that money away anyway. Well, I don't want you to do that. I want it to actually go to you. And this is one of the ones where it was like, if we were actually getting the equivalent amount coming through PayPal as we did through Boost, I'm sure we would stop that. I'm sure it'd be like, okay, no, we'll actually keep some of this for ourselves. But it's because it's so small. It's like we say it as a way to perhaps be like an extra incentive or something like that. But there's if you listen to that interview, it's cool kind of seeing someone who doesn't really get it. Peter McCormack doesn't. He's very much stuck in the advertiser mindset, and that could be the correct way for him. I think it's kind of shoddy where it's like, if you get 8 million sats in the thing that is your whole fucking podcast is about, and you only have like the passing interest in it, like that's a little bit like, dude, what are you actually doing here? But he's, when I was talking to Danny, who does he does get it more than Peter does. He was just saying like, that dude is just so busy. He's busy all the time, nonstop, and so I can understand why.
Mate, Peter McCormack needs to come visit my house, mate.
Yeah, exactly. I can understand why, if someone who's super busy and doesn't have time to realize like, oh, it's not just Fountain, it's a whole plethora of apps. Oh, it's not. It's not like this closed and locked thing. Oh, they're not really. They're kind of competing with Spotify, but not really. And Oscar didn't even get the chance, from what I can tell so far, to talk about. It's not just the Bitcoin thing. It's the chapters. It's the being able to go live. It's all the other interactions. So
I think I think there was some point in that conversation that could have been better explored. But again, that cements to me again. Talking about
Oscar did well. He gets it. He gets it.
I think the point for all this is when we call out the support and we're calling out for that. Look, we are very much aware that it is the way we ask for things right now is very different to probably what most people listen to. That's fine. That's fair. I'm actually going to talk to you about it just a little bit in a moment in the podcast about another idea that I had, because genuinely my mind goes to, there's probably ways that we need to monetize the podcast in the medium term. And this is a very long-term play, right? Which we're kind of confident with, but it's a long-term play. We don't know what the timing of that is. But before we do that, I'm going to tell you about how I stitched myself up today, literally this morning.
Okay.
So then I want to hear your other tip, your notes that you got as well. So I stitched myself up this morning, folks, because I went, you know what? I'm going to run. I'm going to go for a run this morning, a long run.
Reasonable.
I parked the car near work. I was slightly late, I always say that I preach that I wake up at 4 a.m., 4:10. I did indeed wake up at 4:10 a.m. I was back to sleep. Then I woke up at 5. Yeah. So then I got up, put my shoes on, drove, parked the car. It was 6 a.m. 6 a.m. So keeping the timing here. I then decided, for the folks who don't know, I was in Brisbane City. For Karen, I was basically at what was a good place? Like Eagle Street area, just basically to give you an idea. I decided, cool, I'm going to just run out. I got time, 6 a.m. Fuck, I got plenty of time. I don't have to be up to the office until 8. Let's go. Let's just see how far I go. I went around the river, got to Hamilton, got to East Street. Now, at that point, it was 11 Ks. I was like, cool. This is good. I'm feeling good. Let's turn around. Let's hop on back. At 14 kilometers, like 13 point something kilometers, my right foot, dude, cramped hard. Like one of those where your foot just like squeezes down. And that was it. That was it for running. There was no more running after that. But I stitched myself up because I was 7 kilometers away from the office. I went, shit, I've stitched myself up here. So then I had to proceed. I quickly jumped into Woolies, got myself like a Gatorade, sculled it down. And then I semi-walked, ran back to the office in like the most hobbliest, slowest way. And one part that I took away from it was because I ended up getting back to the car at 8:30. And I went, fuck, I just wasted my time. Like I actually wasted a lot of time. Now I filled it with listening to podcasts, but part of it I went, shit, man. Sometimes I say that I am busy, and sure, I am busy, and it's just you fill your time with things. But I went, Yeah, did I need to just go out and try to run really far? Sure, it was fun. Like, it was fun not doing 15Ks all up. But was it like super necessary? Could I have just done 10Ks and gone on with my day and be more effective? Now, nicely today, I got everything that I wanted to do. I did, which is good. But I think it helped me recognize that, one, yes, I can be a bad motherfucker and just go and do whatever the fuck I want and just run and whatever. Obviously, my body gave out, not my mind this time, which is good. But then the other, which is kind of like this hidden underneath this, the thing that's supporting my ego, it's like promoting it. It's like, yeah, but you wasted some time. Like, you could have done these other things, or you could have been more effective, between a 15K and a 10K. It's no different to you, Juan. Like, fucking who cares? What's the difference? It's probably just as good. Now I'm just going to pain to till my foot. So that's probably the worst bit off. And that's to sleep it off and try to work out in the morning. By the way, I think it gave me the learning of be wary of the things that, even though they might bring you joy and might make you feel good, there's sometimes some underlying slices in there that are like, yeah, but you probably didn't have to go and do it the full 15. Could have done 10, gone back, then have fit pain, could have done other things and still felt just as good at the end of the day, and maybe be even more net positive than what you felt. So as I thought about it this morning, so I was like, I kind of stitched myself up as I was running this morning.
We've talked about, or I've talked about at least multiple times in the podcast, about self-destructive tendencies to do something where you kind of know it's bad for yourself, but you do it anyway. And I always got the feeling like you never really identified with that. Is this one of the things you would say is self-destructive about yourself? Like, was that a self-destructive act that you just did?
No, because it gets, I guess, more crazy than that. I guess in the plan that I'd written down, I was supposed to actually do a half marathon. And I think really self-destructive would have been like, no, I'm fucking getting this half marathon distance no matter what. Like, this is going to happen. And I kind of made the call at, like, I think it was 14.7 kilometers. I made the call. I was like, fucking for what? I was like, man, my feet are sore. It's going to become worse for tomorrow. Just, that's it. Finish it there. Like, full round it up for 15. This is cool. It was supposed to be a running day. I missed out a part of a workout that had running, and I just bundled that up in the running. So in part, yes. In part, there was some recognition to not even go beyond and be just, pushing it for the sake of the fact that I'd put it down on paper.
Yeah. Did you have your phone on you?
Yes.
How come you just didn't get a Uber or something back?
Honestly, didn't think about that. I think I didn't think about that because I was like, no, I've got to make my way back to the car. I think the other reason was because I did have headphones and I was listening to a podcast that was interesting. So extending the listening, although again, I could have just listened while I was on the Uber. Honestly, didn't cross my mind. That's a weird one. It did not cross my mind at all.
I'm chalking this down as one of your self-destructive things. That's
this is good. This is good
behavior.
This is a good point.
If you've seen any of those, the Ultramarathon where it's like last man standing, you ever seen any of those videos? Yeah. For those who don't know, it's essentially what are they? Is it a 1 mile or no? It's longer than that. It's ridiculous.
They can be different lengths.
Yeah, the one I've seen is it's a pretty standard one where they've got 60 minutes, so it's on the hour. How far is a mile, Juan?
1.62 kilometers.
Yeah, so it's probably 5 miles, something like that.
I think of the stuff you're referring to is 4.2 miles.
Okay, yeah. So it's 4.2 miles, which is a decent,
it's like 7 point something, 8 point something kilometers every 60 minutes.
Yeah, on the hour. So you run your mile, or you run your distance, however long that takes, and then you hopefully get a little bit of time to rest, and then you have to do it all again. And basically, you just keep doing this until there's only one person who completes the last section, and you've got these all of these people join up and do it, and probably most of them will run the equivalent of like a marathon over the first.
A marathon?
I don't know. Yeah, probably the most.
Mate, they end up doing. Yeah, they do end up doing like 100 miles.
No, I'm saying like the bulk of the people will probably.
Oh, gotcha.
And then you'll have this select group of 6 to 12 people who go, 24 hours, 26 hours, 28 hours, 30 hours, and they just keep going. And I remember listening to Courtney Dauwaulter on Joe Rogan, and she was the only one. Joe was so surprised, and she's like this ultra marathoner. She doesn't do that race from what I can tell, but she just runs like ridiculous distances. And he was just so surprised with her because he was like, "You've got like no demon in you. What? Why are you doing these things?" And I think I found it shocking that he found it shocking that she had none of this in him, because he's talked with a whole bunch of people who do the craziest shit, and he was surprised that she didn't have any of this kind of like what I call self-destructive tendencies in her. There was no like, I'm punishing myself by doing this. I think the classic example of this is David Goggins. Like, that dude is just all punishment, basically no pleasure, or he takes pleasure in the punishment, which is like this kind of sadomasochistic kind of feedback loop that he's got going on. But yeah, that's one of those ones where I'm like, yeah, like if you're doing those real big distances, sometimes you're just like punishing yourself, and it's healthy with the it's just a healthier version of going down the drug route, for example.
True. I was gonna say, and I'll this is a gigantic caveat. 15 kilometers, quote unquote, isn't long distance when you're talking. These people that do just ridiculous distances, and for sure, to some people, even just an average runner, that might just be standard distance, right? But again, I don't consider myself a runner at all, so that was hitting top end. I guess it's also, I just don't know what I can and can't do largely in a space like running, in a similar way that if someone came to me and you've barely lifted and whatnot, and you'd be like, oh yeah, I can probably, I think I've benched once before, like 100, so I could do like 90 for 12. Or, I'd be like, shut up. Second, you have no idea. I have no idea what you're talking about. Or, if you're like, if it's like a workout where it's, it's got dips and bench pressing and muscle ups, something like that. I could do it in like this time. You die. Shut up. You can't. You don't know what's going to happen to your body and the energy, whatever. Just shut up. You don't understand it. But I think sometimes you have to go through it to kind of really know, because even if I told someone around that, or if someone told me like, if you're going to do this, whatever, I'll be like, nah, it should be all good. I'll drink my water. I'll do this. It'll be all fine.
Good transition, man, and I'm not looking too deeply into yours. It's only if you tell me that you've done the same thing or an equivalent next week, and then the week after, where I'll be like, Juan, what are you doing?
Next week I'm doing 21.
This gets so nicely into my topic, the main one that I wanted to talk about, which was routine, and how much of your routine is actually set in stone. So this last 2 weeks, so it's been about 2 weeks since I've been, well, let's say 3 weeks, because the week before I left was just chaos as well. My routine has just been all out of whack. I'm waking up at 6 a.m. When I heard that ringer today, I was just like, God damn. And I got a question for you, I guess, which was to kick this off, which is how much your routine is set in stone, as in it's at the point where it's now there's a religious word for it. It's like dogmatic. You're dogmatic in that I don't do this. I don't go to bed after 10 p.m. perhaps is one for you, or for me it would be like, I don't wake up at X certain time. How much of your routine would you say is like that, and what are the reasons for this?
That's a good one. I'd say that between 3 hours after waking up and 2 hours to 3 hours, I'd say 3 hours after waking up and 3 hours before sleep, it's pretty routine. It's pretty standard. It doesn't fluctuate that much. The only time it fluctuates is our conversations, or if there's an invite to something. But usually in the mornings, my alarm hasn't changed. Like, yes, I sometimes do sleep past it. Sometimes I'll wake up earlier, but it hasn't changed from 4:15. This is what it is. And when I get up, there's a very usual routine of getting the drink for the day, going to the bathroom, getting changed, going to the gym before a run, doing that, either coming home or going into the office. And then when that usually, like more often than not, it's going to the cafe in the morning and looking after my daughter while my partner trains. That is very usual, very routine. After that, that's when it kind of fluctuates. When it's through the day, I can't control a lot of the things of like the meetings that I do, or the emails, or the reacting to things. That fluctuates. And it's the reason why I don't put things like training, reading, whatever in the middle of the day, because it won't happen. It just will not happen with everything that's going on. But then towards the end of the day, it's once again pretty routine. From about the point of nowadays, we're trying to have dinner around 5:30. Just from for everyone who's got kids, you totally understand this. You have to have some sort of routine for the bedtime, or you're fucked, right? You'll just be fucked in terms of them waking up or waking you up or whatever else. So there's pretty set cadence of dinner, bath time, getting them ready, reading time, play time, relax time. They go to sleep, then you go and do whatever afterwards before. But again, as you mentioned, yeah, I don't have it super focused in of like, oh, I'm not going to go to sleep after 10 p.m. But it just so happens it's like pretty routinely that, yeah, I'll either read or chat with my partner and then we'll go to bed at usually around the same time. So,
Yep.
Yeah, it's pretty locked in.
You mentioned 4:15 there, and there's one of the ones I wanted to like dial in on. So if that were to change to 8 a.m., unforeseen life circumstances, whatever, you now have to wake up at 8 a.m. What would be the reasons that you would want it to go back to 4:15? So like, why 4:15?
I guess the main reason would be why 4:15, because it gives me enough time to do some of the things I want to do in the morning before the rest of the day kind of takes away that opportunity for me to do them.
Yeah.
So if it did change to 8 a.m., it would mean trying to carve out time somewhere else through the day, which for as it stands right now is way more difficult than if I was to do it in the morning.
Yeah. So there's one of those ones where I go, there's a chance that that could be the reason, but I wouldn't be surprised if the real reason actually wasn't something different and you've just kind of forgotten about it or never realized it about yourself. And the reason I say this is because my routine has just been so out of whack. I've had to do a whole lot of things differently than I normally do. For this one, I've been waking up earlier and going to bed earlier. For the travel stuff, I've been having to travel at certain times where I don't normally want to, sleeping in different circumstances and ways, and like trying to do it on a bus and on a plane. Speaking and learning Portuguese at times where I'd normally not want to, because it's like it's a social setting and things like this. Not doing the like deeper work that I usually like to do in the mornings, and then having to do that at another time, or if I get a chance at all. And the couple of things I've realized about myself were, I guess, just the reasons that I do certain things they're kind of close, but they're not exactly what I thought it was. So what, if you had to guess, were my reason for not doing 2 workouts a day, and what is the real reason for me not doing 2 workouts a day?
Well, I was going to say the real reason is that there's not enough time now to do that large amount of working out, or you're too sore. But
even before that, so like even if I had like my real good routine, locked in routine from a couple of months ago, what would have my
probably just
been?
Maybe just the soreness of the wrists or the body or something like that.
Yeah, so it's not that, and that was kind of my reasoning for never really doing like a harder workout in the mornings. So I used to have a kind of routine where I'd stretch, and I'd stretch for a couple hours in the morning, and then I would do a full on session later in the afternoon. And I used to think it was, I don't do handstands in the morning and then handstands in the afternoon, or like handstands and then a strength workout, was because when I wake up in the morning, I just feel bad. Like right now, for example, my eyes feel so heavy. I still got about the same amount of sleep, but I can just feel like everything about me is just like, oh, this just is just not fun. I don't want to be up and moving at this time. And I assumed it was the same thing for like working out. I just don't work out in the mornings because like I don't feel good, all that sort of thing. And I'm trying to remember back to when I used to play soccer, and I'm pretty sure I always enjoyed afternoon and evening games more. But it's not like I was benched because we had a morning game and Kyron shit in the mornings. You know, whatever decrease in performance there is, it can't be much. And the reason I found this out was because I've had to do a couple of morningish workouts with Lucas because we're traveling in the afternoon, and I realized I can do this. And it's not actually that bad of a session. Like it just takes a little bit longer to get into it, but yeah, okay, no, I'm actually doing okay now, and it's not like I've gone from being able to do 10 pull-ups to do 2. It's like 10 to maybe 9.5 or 9.2 or something like that. And I discovered the real reason I don't do 2 is I just don't want to shower twice. I don't want to go out twice. I don't want to have to do twice the amount of washing for my clothes. And that is the predominant reason. It's not the workout itself. It's all the other shit around it.
It's the auxiliary things that come around that,
which just take up so much time, and that people don't realize take up time. Another example for this, and this is one I knew, and I've said for ages. I don't do one meal a day because I think it gives health benefits for any sort of reason. If anything, there's probably science out there that would indicate that for what I want to do, for for the things that I care about, getting a one-arm handstand, being able to do something which is pretty damn hard and requires a lot of like training, strength, and all that sort of stuff, is probably not optimal. There's probably a better way to fuel my body to be able to do that. But I don't eat more than once a day is because of all the auxiliary shit. I don't want to cook twice. I don't want to have to clean twice. I don't want to have to think about where am I going to go to get breakfast? Oh no, this sort of thing. And this is one thing I have known, and I'm very certain about. Like, this is the reason why I don't eat more than once a day, and also because it makes me feel a bit sluggish with the training. But once again, I did train because one of my yearly goals, if you go back to that, was when I travel to not be too strict to myself, not to be too disciplined. And I've even got it into my weekly like little checkup thing, which is do not behave antisocially just because it doesn't fit into your plan. So just because Lucas's family, Yada's family wanted to have a lunch where everyone sits down and gets together, don't be antisocial about that, Kyron. And I haven't been. I've been actually really good about eating some foods and like participating in the joint experience of appreciating a lunch and things like that. And yeah, that was just one where I was like, okay, the reason I don't do 2 workouts a day, that's just why. It's not what I thought it was. It's something completely different. And yeah, it's just been interesting having my routine so broken up and seeing there's minor variations of this in terms of how much Portuguese I can handle a day. And even social interactions. Before this, I would have said I need to have 2 or 3 hours on my own doing nothing, or not doing nothing, but 2 or 3 hours on my own. I've spent like 3 days with Lucas and his family and friends and girlfriend, basically constantly interacting. There's physically within reach of someone by 5 meters for the whole day, and I've done okay. It hasn't been the end of the world. Yes, after the 3 days, I realized like, oh fuck, I'm a little bit tired. I need a little bit of space to myself, but I was able to get through 3 days pretty fine. So yeah, just these routines, I think it's worth looking at. And as you were saying with the running, experimenting, because the reasons that you'll find for why you don't do certain things, I think, can kind of surprise yourself as well.
Yeah, I think summed up in some ways for that, right, is you will always regress to the mean, and you want your mean to be a good mean. You want what your default standard cookie cutter, what you wish you could do day in, day out mean is a good mean. For me, that looks like, as I kind of just stated before, early mornings, relatively early sleeps, good structured time with my family, good structured time of being able to make money through the day, learning pockets through here and there, and fitness and more learning wherever I can. Now, I will naturally regress to the mean if given the opportunity. If I'm elsewhere, like if I was traveling, and yeah, you're going to have these things where the routine kind of kicks you around, but eventually you want to kind of return to the mean. You also do want that, I guess, that flexibility, as you say, of being, I don't know if anti-fragility is right alongside of it, but just being flexible, being okay with, and this is something I found out many years ago around food intake, in that I was very inflexible in the way that I was eating way back when I used to do more bodybuilding style lifting. Why? Because I was in this routine of, well, no, I've got to eat like every 3 hours, and I'm very prone to, getting like sugar crashes because I'm not having enough carbohydrates because I'm eating this much, and kind of recognizing that's pretty inflexible. Like if I go and I have to not eat breakfast or lunch for whatever reason, just got to push. I was like, man, I can't do it. Like I have no energy. Very different now, so you got to find the places where it's like, yes, is it optimal for, a very specific thing that you might try to achieve? No, it isn't. But so what? It's better to regress to the mean, because for the overall, it's a better benefit than trying to optimize. As you say, like, if you're trying to optimize for your stretching and your handstand goals, well, sure, you could be doing that in Brazil and nothing would be stopping you. But man, you would be missing out on all this other stuff. That's kind of the point of why you're over there at the same time. As you say, to be not be antisocial, but to connect, to explore your Portuguese, to explore Brazil, to be with friends. It's like, again, all the way back to the Coffeezilla thing, right? Or Cato, like you can be so strict and so disciplined in a particular thing, and it's not a bad thing, but it's all the other things that you also end up losing because of it. As long as you recognize what your mean looks like and making it a good mean, just know you're going to regress towards it and then fluctuate it as you need to. Like, you'd be pretty comfortable, I guess, in the fact that, yeah, it's a bit of a moving piece at the moment for you. Yeah, you do end up prioritizing the things like handstand work and a few other things. But you'll always know when you get back to Australia, or you find a place where you can regress to the mean, you will. You'll get back to that. And that's because that's your standard now. That's just the way that you want to operate. And it's not a bad thing.
The other thing I realized about routine is I always, when I hear people talking about people need to have jobs, they need to have something in their life where it's like, what would you do if you're jobless? It's like this unknown void of scariness. And I always used to think, like, have you people never fucking just not, like, what do you do on weekends if you don't have a if jobs are so critical for your life? Why, how are you this kind of like scared about the void, or what you'll do with your day, and having like a loss of meaning? And I'm like, if you got meaning through your fucking job, which you hate, like, dude, you got to fix your priorities. Or saying that other people need this. This is one of the times where I'm like, I won't concede my point. I think my point's still way stronger, but I'll concede by 7%, where I'm like, okay, having a loss of routine has made me realize. Yeah, the other day, for example, was the first day I kind of, we had this super big busy schedule. Any spare time I had was trying to fix up our old audio, do a little bit of prep and things like this for the last one. So essentially, like, it's been week of crazy prep, getting ready to come to Brazil. First 3 or 4 days with like Lucas and family, like, didn't even open my laptop. Finally get established in this little room here, and spend time unpacking, getting stuff together, working and doing crap on my computer, just stuff that needs to get done. then traveling again, and then yesterday was the first time where I really just had a block of space where I was like, you can do whatever you want here. And because my routine had been so broken, I almost didn't know what to do. It was like, well, do I study now? Do I do some of my do I do some stretching? Should I do some reading? Should I go out? Should I practice my Portuguese? Should I do a bit more like podcast prep? All of these sort of things were running through my head, and I ended up just like fucking it around. To be honest, like I wasted a whole bunch of hours just on nothing. And this was a time where I went, okay, I can kind of see like if you don't have some passions that you're working on and that require a lot of time, and two, a routine to kind of like fit them in, or a schedule perhaps is a better word for it, then I can kind of go, okay, I can see why you would be scared about not having that being told for you in a job type situation.
Well, I think stated it in another way. It is the lack of structure that scares people, because it is implied structure through a work domain. Same thing with university, right? When people leave school, and sure, some people will push people to go into university from parents or what it might be like the best thing, or you have friends that go to it. But in large part, some people go to university because it's, once again, come out of school and here's this next structure. It's the next step. It's the next thing to do. And it's nicely squared up and diced up, and you do this and you get this and this is what you do. And people froth that. Same thing in the workplace. It's, you're getting structure. And people work better that way. I've led a lot of teams. I've led a lot of people. When people work well, it's because you give them a lot of precision and a lot of structure, and like, hey, you're going to have this, and then we're going to have this session, and then you're going to get this detail here, then you're going to get it there. And then people go and do their work, and then they come back, and cool, it's like ticking the boxes of what I'm seeing. The problem, I think, for most people is that in general, most folks don't know how to create their own internal structure, without the university, without the work. Because as you say, then the general human tendency might be just to fuck around, to do things which are hedonistic as opposed to maybe strategically viewed, or just don't have the thoughts behind, how do I goal set? What's important to me, right? You just become hedonic. You become just fucking monkey mode, and you're like, all right, cool, I'll just fucking masturbate for an hour, and then I'll just watch videos for 3 hours, and then I'll listen to music for another hour, and then I'll go for a run. Right? Okay, you spend some time, but in your world, and I think it's weird because for you, well, maybe not, it's not weird. You worked well in the structure of school, in the structure of university, and work was shit for you because you had a shit like workplace. But then you were able to build up a really easy structure to how you want to live your life. Maybe it was because you knew how to play in a structure, or you knew very easily how to create that. A lot of other people may not be. I think it's like a question of structure. When you remove, for a lot of people, 8 hours, 9 hours of structure, they kind of go like, fuck, what do I fill it with? Because they just haven't conceptualized how you would fill this gap of life to structure it for another way.
Yeah, the army's a similar thing as well, where it's just another variation of that. Just to clarify, my work actually wasn't too bad. It wasn't a shit workplace by any means of the imagination. I think it was
fuck you, Ria.
I'd reached the stage where I realized like this wasn't, if I'm going to be doing, and this is probably the other aspect to it, which is, well, if I get to choose my own kind of destiny or what I work on, if it feels kind of like why arbitrary and meaningless, like why am I doing this instead of, if you've got a job, there is some sort of like underlying meaning to it, I guess, which or people attach that to it. I'm doing this job because I'm supporting a family, and etc. 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 Whereas for me, I'm kind of like, I know the one arm handstand's an arbitrary goal, man. Like it's not gonna do anything. Is it gonna, like cause there to be like celebrations? Will it etch my name in stone? Will there be legacy? Will it even bring me happiness? Like not really. Like it's the day I get it, it's kind of like I'll just be dissatisfied because I want to do it longer, or do another trick or whatever. but I'm okay with the kind of like choosing to do the things which are somewhat arbitrary and you therefore I guess meaningless, or attaching my own meaning to things is perhaps the other way of putting it. Whereas if you're not willing or not able to do that, that's when the work kind of makes sense to you. It's like, oh, or the lack of work is scary, and the void.
Yeah.
As you were speaking, I was just like, damn, how would one manage me? Like, what would that look like? Would he give me some structure, or would he like let the reins loose, and he's just like, well, Karen, just get this shit done by this time. Don't screw this up.
It'd probably be the latter. It'd probably be the latter. You know, you can always tell the people, the type of people, how they work and stuff like that, and it'd probably be something like the latter. But I've also had it in the other way where it's very much the form of you're going to be like, hey, you need to do this by 10, and then by 3 you're going to do this, and then you got this session, and you're all good with that. That also happens as well, right? It's just this thing.
Yeah.
Have you got it? Do you have another note as well that you took down?
I did, but this is getting too long, man, and I'm conscious like you're staying up too late.
It's only 9 p.m.
So yeah, yeah. For me, this would be like dinner time. So a couple of things. I'll just save my other Brazil notes for the next time. And as you mentioned, maybe it was before the podcast started. I did my kind of like first Instagram story, I guess, the other day, and I was talking about some classic, authentic.
Yeah, tell me
Brazilian food. But I'll save that for next week. So if you tuned in for that, I'll talk more about Brazilian food next week. The other thing was the V for V show, and this was one of the ones where I was like, you asking, what's the deal with that? Are you going to bring that back or anything? I think I've decided I'm just going to put it on hiatus for the moment. The 6 hours it would take to create that per week, which is 6 to 7 hours. So let's just say 1 hour a day. I just would rather be using that hour to do Portuguese things and Brazilian things. So yeah, the drive to do it has certainly declined, and I'm already like 2 weeks overdue for an episode. So I'm just gonna do a little mini episode, just saying like, hey, I'm just taking a break from this for a bit and check back in like 3 or 4 months time, and that's when I'll kick it back off again. So yeah, routines change, and you same with our routine for the timing and things like this. It was probably foreseeable. It was it was probably notable to go like, these guys are actually going to be able to stick with this. We'll see.
Things change. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Things fluctuate. One of the other things I didn't talk into it, but I, in part, starting to look at, okay, well, what are the forms of us being able to produce an income, like a sizable income from the stuff that we're doing right now, at least in the short term or medium term. I think we could talk about that in next week. But again, it's those things that are floating around in my mind that I go, again, things can change, things can fluctuate. It can still, at the core level, our principles remain the same, but what are the things we can do? But look, we are going to leave it there, Mere Mortalites. I hope you have enjoyed listening into the podcast. We talked about it already, but we are a value for value enabled show. So you can send through time, talent, or treasure. Time, obviously, listening into the podcast, sharing it with folks. Talent, as we're talking about what are the other ways that we can provide support to people, you can let us know what that is through any commentary or emails, whichever way you want to reach us. If you think there's particular things that Karen should be seeing while he's in Brazil, any notes or memorable things you think that we should be looking into around structure, all of those various things are always going to be good. And treasure, which is in the format of boostergrams, sending through Satoshis in a streaming way through all the good podcasting players out there, or you can utilize our sort of PayPal directly if you want to go and support us through there. Many ways, and we're going to keep on harping on with that, but we will continue to seek ways in which we can try and provide more value, basically, to people if there's value there for us to be shared. So for now, I think we're going to leave it there. Thank you very much for tuning in wherever you are in the world, which means Australia or Brazil or globally. Mere Mortalites, take care wherever you are. Juan, out.
Karen, out. Ciao.
Good.
Obrigado. Brilliant. Thank you, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you for the words. Tuning in live. Thank you, Lucas. Thank you, Patricia.
Yeah, much appreciated. Rompado grande. Oh,
grande.
yeah. Very good. Cool, man. I won't keep you up. I hope you have a good week, and Vienna and Jazz are doing well. Would you mind just putting your audio on Drive just immediately?
Yeah.
I wanna edit this straight away, basically. So yeah,
Okay.
it'd be good to have that backup there. Cool.
Good stuff, man.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone.